Moderation means knowing how to control our desires and feelings and acting with balance. Why is moderation so relevant? What are its advantages, and how can we integrate it into our daily lives? To answer these questions, let's look at the knowledge of the ancient Stoics, a group of philosophers who considered moderation to be a fundamental principle. The Stoics were thinkers from ancient Greece and Rome who lived between the 3rd century BC and the 2nd century AD. They sought happiness and inner tranquility through reason and acceptance of fate. For them, happiness lay within us and did not depend on external things. They strove to live according to their rational and social nature, practicing 4 essential virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Stoic moderation is based on the idea that we should act according to our reason, not allowing our emotions or desires to dominate us. This means that we should be aware of our actions and feelings, making rational choices rather than giving in to irrational impulses. For the Stoics, destructive emotions such as anger, fear, hatred, or envy arose from misjudging or valuing things beyond our control. The Stoics explained that our reactions came in 3 stages instead of 2. It's not just an event and a reaction, but rather an event, a judgment, and then a reaction. Thus, they practiced moderation in order to free themselves from these negative emotions and find inner peace. Stoic moderation also involves the balanced use of material goods, such as food, drink, sex, and money. They didn't reject these pleasures, but they didn't seek them obsessively either. They considered these pleasures to be indifferent, that is, neither good nor bad, just useful or harmful, depending on how they were used. Stoic moderation can be summed up in the idea of nothing in excess. This maxim, attributed to the Greek poet Cimon, is related to the Aristotelian concept of balance. The Stoics adopted it as a guide to a virtuous and happy life. Marcus Aurelius used voluntary discomfort to remind himself not to lust. This voluntary discomfort could be something like sleeping on the floor instead of the bed and sometimes taking a cold shower. What are the benefits of moderation? Moderation helps us to improve our physical and mental health, our self-esteem, and our relationships. Before continuing, please like and subscribe to help build more armored Stoics like you. Moderation contributes to good physical health, avoiding excesses that can harm our bodies. Eating in moderation helps to maintain a healthy weight and prevent diseases such as obesity or diabetes. Drinking in moderation avoids intoxication or addiction that can affect our liver and mind. Having sex in moderation protects us from sexually transmitted diseases, unwanted pregnancies, and even the obsession with pleasure. Moderation improves our mental health by preventing negative emotions that can disturb our mind. Controlling anger helps us to resolve conflicts peacefully without harming others or ourselves. Dealing with fear allows us to face challenges with courage without paralyzing ourselves. Controlling envy helps us appreciate what we have and rejoice in the success of others. Moderation raises our self-esteem, avoiding complexes or insecurities that can undermine our confidence. Using money in moderation allows us to value ourselves for who we are, not for what we have. Moderation in sex helps us to respect ourselves and our partners. Moderation in food makes us feel good about our body and image. Moderation improves our relationships, avoiding conflicts and offenses that could harm our coexistence. Using words with moderation allows us to communicate assertively without aggression. Moderation in humor allows us to have fun without ridiculing anyone. Moderate praise allows us to recognize the achievements of others without exaggerating or envying. Moderation offers many benefits, but it's a challenge to practice it. How can we cultivate moderation in our daily lives? The Stoics have some tips and exercises that can help. Reflect on our actions every day, evaluating whether we act with moderation or not. This can be done in the morning, when planning our day, or in the evening, when reflecting on our actions. The aim is to identify mistakes or excesses and correct them in the future. When evaluating whether you acted moderately, ask yourself, how did I do? Was I moderate today? Meditate on the principles of Stoicism and apply them to our lives. We can read texts by Stoic philosophers, such as Epictetus, Seneca, or Marcus Aurelius, and reflect on their teachings. The aim is to internalize the values of Stoicism and make them part of our lives, voluntarily submitting to deprivations or challenges in order to strengthen our will and resistance. This can involve temporarily giving up certain pleasures or comforts, such as sweets, alcohol, or air conditioning, or facing inconveniences such as cold, heat, or noise. The aim is to get used to living with less and dealing with difficulties. As Seneca said, set aside a few days during which you make do with the poorest and cheapest things, Dress simply and rustically, and in the meantime, ask yourself, is this the condition I feared? This makes us better at dealing with anxiety, for example. It takes a lot of self-awareness to say, I'm feeling uncomfortable because of this, or I'm anxious because of that. For me, this was a discovery I made during the pandemic, when I suddenly didn't have so many commitments anymore. I didn't have to go to certain places, I wasn't stuck in traffic, I didn't have to prepare for this or that, so by logic, I expected my anxiety to decrease significantly, that I would suddenly have fewer worries. But in reality, that didn't happen. And then you realize, oh, anxiety has nothing to do with all these external things. Marcus Aurelius talks about this in his Meditations. He says, I freed myself from anxiety, and then corrects himself by saying, well, no, actually I discarded it. And that's what he wrote during an epidemic, no less, but he says, I discarded it because it was inside me. It was a discovery I made. I thought I was stressed, anxious and worried because of all these understandable things that cause these feelings in our lives, like work and family. And then, when all these things were reduced, we realized that it was actually we ourselves who were generating this anxiety. If you're struggling with anxiety and existential agony, I've left a link in the first comment to help you deal with them. The most consolidated Stoic principles for dealing with these agonizing pains. It's in the first comment. Seek inspiration from examples of people who have practiced moderation in their lives, both real and fictional, ancient and contemporary. We can study their biographies or works and try to follow in their footsteps or advice. The aim is to have role models on our path to moderation. These are some of the tips and exercises that the Stoics offer for cultivating moderation in our daily lives. It's not necessary to follow everything to the letter. Adapting them to our personal situation and learning pace is fundamental. The important thing is to understand that moderation is not a restriction, but a liberation and a source of satisfaction. As Seneca said, he who has little is not poor, but he who desires much. Moderation teaches us to desire little and enjoy much, to live with what is necessary and be happy with what we have. It teaches us to be masters of ourselves, not slaves to our desires. To remain conscious of their decisions, the Stoics used a few rules to become unstoppable and conquer the armored mentality. Click on the screen and watch it now.